This is the Dornier Do-335. One of the most remarkable aircraft of World War II, the Do-335 was a machine that sent chills down the spines of Allied forces. Nicknamed the Arrow, it was Germany's secret weapon, designed to dominate the skies with blistering speed, leaving everything else in its dust. But what made the Do-335 so revolutionary? How was it the fastest plane of the war? And if it was so advanced, why did it ultimately have no impact on the outcome of World War II? Even though it's often forgotten, the Dornier Do-335 was an aircraft that defied what the world thought was possible in World War II. Often overshadowed by other famous fighters of the time, like the Grumman F-6F Hellcat and the Junkers Ju-87. The Do-335 was in every way truly ahead of its time. Developed by the German aircraft manufacturer Dornier, the Do-335 was born out of a need for a fast, heavy-hitting fighter bomber capable of long-range operations and swift strikes. And to say the Do-335 delivered would be a massive understatement. So let me tell you all about the plane that left Allied forces' jaws on the floor. The story of the Do-335 began in 1941, when Dornier's chief engineer, Dr. Claude Dornier, set out to create a new kind of aircraft that combined the best features of both a fighter and a bomber. His idea wasn't entirely new. After all, iconic planes like the Junkers Ju-88 and the American B-25, Mitchell had already experimented with blending the best of both worlds. However, what made the Do-335 stand out was how its team brought the idea to life. In a move that would rewrite aviation history, the ingenious engineers at Dornier opted for a push-pull configuration. At the time, most planes had engines mounted in the front, a pull configuration, an arrangement that was successful in iconic planes like the Bell P-39 Airacobra and the Bell P-63 King Cobra. But the Do-335 flipped the script, placing one engine at the nose and another at the tail. Strange looks aside, this design was brilliant, allowing the plane to achieve incredible speed and stability. It was so effective that the Do-335 could reach speeds of up to 474 miles per hour, or 764 kilometers per hour, making it faster than any other propeller-driven plane of its era. For perspective, this aircraft was twice as fast as a Bugatti, 2.5 times faster than a bullet train, and almost 100 kilometers per hour quicker than the fastest Allied fighter at the time, the P-51 Mustang. Designed to be a multi-role aircraft with a range of 1,000 miles or 1,600 kilometers, the Do-335 wasn't just about speed, it could also carry a formidable payload. This versatility made it an effective weapon for both bomber and fighter roles. Speaking of fighter roles, the Do-335's armament was just as impressive as its speed. Equipped with a 30mm engine-mounted cannon, two 20mm wing-mounted autocannons, a 500kg bomb in the fuselage, and two 250kg bombs under the wings, the Dornier Do-335 packed serious firepower for its size. But how did they manage to design something so extraordinary? After all, this plane remained one of the fastest propeller-driven aircraft ever built, outrunning most contemporaries. Only first-generation jet fighters could surpass it. To truly understand how Germany produced the Dornier Do-335, we need to step back and look at how aerial warfare was evolving during World War II. By the early 1940s, aviation was no longer a novelty. It had become a game-changer for military strategy. The Luftwaffe, Germany's air force, recognized that air superiority was critical to victory, and they used this knowledge to drive a technological race for some of the most advanced and dangerous aircraft of the war. But it wasn't just about designing cutting-edge aircraft. In the early stages of World War II, Germany relied heavily on the Blitzkrieg strategy, a lightning-fast coordinated attack that depended on overwhelming air support to cripple the enemy before they could mount a defense. Dive bombers like the Junkers Ju-87, Stuka, and fighter escorts such as the Messerschmitt Bf-109 made this possible, playing a significant role in Germany's rapid early conquests across Europe. At the time, controlling the air gave the German military a strategic advantage. However, by 1941, things were starting to shift. As the war dragged on, the Allies learned from their initial mistakes and began to develop more effective countermeasures against German air superiority. Fighters like the Supermarine Spitfire and P-51 Mustang began to gain ground. And at the same time, the demands on the Luftwaffe were growing. They needed longer ranges for bombers, faster interceptors, and the ability to tackle new planes such as a fighter-bomber hybrid. The skies were evolving rapidly, and the Luftwaffe needed an aircraft that could keep up with these new demands. That aircraft was the Dornier Do-335. Born from an innovative design and the urgency of World War II, its origins actually trace back to Claude Dornier's earlier work on tandem-engine flying boats during World War I. These engines showcase features like reduced drag and better weight distribution, making aircraft more maneuverable and stable, benefits that would later lay the groundwork for what would become the Do-335. The plane was relatively long compared to many fighters of its time, measuring 12.3 meters in length with a wingspan of 13.8 meters. It had the perfect dimensions for optimal lift and stability at very high speeds. The plane stood at a height of about 4.5 meters and had a maximum takeoff weight of around 7,100 kilograms. The Dornier Do-335 was powered by two DB603A engines, each producing 1,750 PS, or 1,287 kilowatts, driving the forward and rear-mounted propellers. This design minimized drag, increased speed, and provided a more balanced, stable aircraft. The first prototype of the plane, the Do-335 V1, flew in October 1943. Despite early issues with the landing gear, the plane quickly proved its potential, and soon enough, the German trump card was in production. Although the Dornier Do-335 could quite literally beat all its competition in a race, its production turned out to be a race against time, one that Germany ultimately lost. In 1943, the Luftwaffe ordered the Do-335 into production, and Dornier's factory in Oberpfaffenhofen began manufacturing the aircraft. However, by 1944, the situation in Germany had drastically worsened as the Allies grew accustomed to German tactics. Allied bombing raids devastated the country's industrial capacity, and factories struggled with material shortages, labor problems, and constant disruptions. Sadly, that meant that despite the Do-335's promise, production was painfully slow. By the time the first pre-production models rolled off the assembly line, the war was all but over. To make matters worse, only 37 aircraft had been completed, consisting mostly of prototypes and a few operational models. However, although limited in number, the Do-335 stunned test pilots with its blistering speed and stability. It could outrun the P-38 Lightning and most Allied fighters, making it one of the fastest piston-engine aircraft ever built. But it was simply too late to make a difference. When Germany surrendered in 1945, the Allies captured several Do-335s and shipped them off for evaluation. Even though it arrived late to the war, it did leave an impression. In fact, the few times it flew, it caused alarm, but not in the way Germany had expected. By early 1945, Germany was desperate. The war was turning into a nightmare, with Allied forces pushing in from both the West and the East. The Luftwaffe, once a dominant force, was now struggling with severe fuel shortages, overwhelmed airfields, and relentless bombing campaigns that turned aircraft production into a logistical nightmare. Amid this chaos, the Dornier Do-335A0 was finally ready for combat. However, readiness on paper did not translate into effective deployment. The Do-335 was assigned to defensive interception roles intended to counter fast-moving Allied bombers. On paper, it was perfect for the job. Its speed was unmatched, capable of outrunning even the feared P-51 Mustang. But in reality, the Luftwaffe lacked the fuel, experienced pilots, and organizational capacity to integrate such an advanced machine effectively. Many of the few Do-335A0 units never even reached frontline squadrons. Some were grounded due to mechanical issues, while others were destroyed on the ground by Allied bombing before they could engage in combat. Reports even suggested that at least one managed to take off for an interception mission, but whether it ever encountered enemy aircraft remains unclear. By April 1945, with Germany collapsing, several Do-335s fell into Allied hands. The most famous of these was captured intact and then shipped to the United States, where it underwent extensive testing at Freeman Field in Indiana. American engineers were astounded by its speed, acceleration, and advanced design. Despite its near-total absence from the battlefield, the Do-335 left a lasting legacy. It demonstrated the potential of the tandem engine concept and inspired post-war aircraft development. But ultimately, it was a fighter without a war, a marvel of engineering that came too late to make a difference. So, what do you think? Was the Dornier Do-335 truly the fastest propeller-driven plane of World War II, or was it simply a technological marvel that arrived too late? Could it have changed the course of history if Germany had mass-produced it earlier? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you're fascinated by the hidden stories of aviation history, the planes that could have changed everything but never got their chance, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. We've got plenty more untold tales of groundbreaking aircraft coming your way. Stay curious, keep soaring, and as always, we'll see you in the skies.